little bitty nail that hangs on the end of my bed that I hang stuff off of. And I just raked the shit out of my hand getting out of bed. And then when I was walking out of the local club meeting is held in a church that one of the members has access to the rooms and stuff. So we usually hold it there because it's kind of central here in the Dallas area.
What did you poke yourself in the ass?
Strawberried my elbow, just big as shit down the brick wall. Just all right.
Man, that sounds fun.
Yeah.
All right. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Just Another G.I. Joe Show, episode number 61. I am solo tonight. Fred is celebrating his mother's 90th birthday. Yay. Good Lord, why that woman waits so late to have someone like Fred, we'll never know. But with that said, I got John with us tonight. We're going to actually talk a little cowboy tonight. For those who don't know, if you've been hiding underneath a rock for a while, John does the Diamond Novel Legends 3 3/4 cowboy line, which is a really, really cool line. At first, I didn't know what to really expect of it until I actually got them in hand. Then I was like, I've got to have these damn things. And I have to have them now.
Plastic crap.
And then I've only got like 5 of them. It's sad I haven't gotten all of them yet.
Well.
But yeah, so, and we weren't friends or talking at the time, I guess, or known each other when the Dime Novel Legends started, the cowboy line. And so it was a Kickstarter that was funded, but not funded all the way as far as unlocking all the figures, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we had originally planned to do 16 figures in the Kickstarter with all the unlocks and that kind of stuff, and went ahead and had all 16 designed. Did digital color renders so you could get a good idea of what they were going to look like and all that kind of stuff. And the Kickstarter, we ended up at about $160,000, which provided enough money to go ahead and produce 11 of the 16. Yeah, actually, it didn't quite do that in terms of what it unlocked, but we went ahead and spent some money and made some additional things that weren't unlocked. So we'd have a broader package to offer to people once everything got here, as it did earlier this summer.
So let me ask you this. I guess I didn't know this. So how much was actually unlocked originally?
The unlocks were the initial offerings, the first Buckaroo, the first gear and accessory set, and then the sharpshooter.
And then you did the rest of the blanks on your own, I guess? Okay.
Right. The rest of the blanks and 3 more figures we paid for out of what should have gone to pay us back for development costs and things like that.
So basically took that money and put back into it?
Yeah, exactly. And that's, as a small business person, you've got to do that. There's no getting around it. And I think it paid off in that it allowed a lot more variety to be offered at the beginning than would have normally. It also gave a bigger reward to the people who pledged the higher levels in the Kickstarter, because it gave them more choices for the amount of money they spent to, kind of pick out what they wanted. And everybody seemed pretty pleased with it overall. The only people that didn't dig it were the ones who were at the end when we were done shipping the all-in packages. Well, why doesn't the all-in have everything? And I had to go back and explain, well, not everything was unlocked that we're making available. We did stuff extra on our own, and little sacrifice out of the pocket to make everything better for everybody. So, it was pretty well received.
Were people kind of expecting, since I guess I understand where you're coming from, what you did. I guess people were kind of expecting you just to, here, take these, have them, they're yours.
Well, most of the time an all-in includes everything that's produced in the Kickstarter. And if you want to break it down like that, basically the extra figures, the ones we're going to be talking about today, were not unlocked. We went ahead and had a tooling cut because they share a lot of parts, but having the actual print run done for the figures, which is a separate cost, was not in the realm of possibility just financially. So there were regarding the ones that we had done extra, the extra blanks and the extra gear and accessories and all that kind of thing. Yeah, there were some people that expected that. It was a small number, but I can understand how they were confused by it a little bit. It was not completely straightforward in terms of what you've come to expect from a Kickstarter, simply because we went ahead and did those on our own. But they're out there. You can get them from smalljoes.com now if you want. Like I said, there's a much bigger selection than there would have been otherwise. I think like I said, it's to everybody's benefit, even if there was a little bit of confusion there at the time. So, it's okay.
Before we get into, I'll do a screen share of the Lost Five here shortly.
Yeah.
But one thing I do want to talk about with you, since you have done it, our friend Bobby has done it, but as of right now, the first time around failed for him. And then, of course, there are a number of other people who have tried the Kickstarter program who have funded, but there has been a terrible, terrible reception of product being produced from China. Not the product per se, but getting the product in hands to us. Take, for example, one story I just recently went across this past week was with CoilCon, which was sometime, was it this year or last year? They were doing I think it was last year, I guess.
Yeah.
And they were doing.
They did a pre-sale on the what were going to be Coil exclusive figures, and I have every confidence that the people that were working on that project are doing everything they can to get it done. But the problem that has sprung up with this, this particular project, the CoilCon figures, and several others, which I'll not name necessarily. I don't want to create any more difficulties for them. But it was all due to the factory. This factory, unfortunately, was a bad choice. And
now, is it the factory who just says, "Oh, hey, we'll do that for you," or do you pick the factory? Okay, is that how it works? And I guess you can price it out with 2 or 3 different factories, because there are more than one group of people over there that manufacture figures and stuff. The biggest problem is finding someone who'll do a smaller print run like this, because whether you produce 10,000 of one figure or whether you produce 1,000 of one figure, it's still the same amount of setup, development, lead time, all of that kind of thing. So obviously they want to do the higher numbers so that they can manufacture more stuff and get paid a bigger number for the setup and so forth and so on. Go ahead. I see you got a question. Oh, no. I always have questions. You should know that by now. I want to post a gentleman. His name is Jeffrey, Jeff, off of Facebook. He does a lot of stuff. And I know he's been a very big advocate of the situation. Granted, I personally would not say hostage, but I mean, I understand where he's coming from. He's upset. He's kind of like me in the same boat, where you kind of think, hey, you got my money and you've told us this date. Now, granted, the factory told you this. Now, and I understand that there are small delays, but let's take, for example, real quick, I don't want to really throw no one under the bus either. Larry Hama figure. We were supposed to have that before JoeCon last year, and here it is over a year later, and they still really haven't. Now, granted, I know it's not their fault, but you personally, yourself, you are able to get someone over there to get a fire up someone's ass over there to get yours going.
Well, it's not so much have somebody over there to do anything more than direct and advocate for you. That's the big thing. I've seen Jeffrey's comments, and he's talking about something that he doesn't have a full picture on, unfortunately. And I don't mean to disparage his comments or his opinion on the matter. So I hope it doesn't come across that way. But what you're looking at right now is a changing landscape for manufacturing. You've got big corporations that are just now moving to other countries. Hasbro has been producing in Vietnam, Taiwan, and a couple other places pretty seriously for the last couple of years. And they're trying to move all of their manufacturing out of China. And the reason for that is strictly the bottom dollar. They can have the work done somewhere else cheaper. period. The thing is, China has been doing this particular thing for 50 years. They have all of the infrastructure in place. You're not going to have that when you go somewhere else. And what will happen there is, say you're going to manufacture an action figure with soft goods, okay? In China, these companies have been doing this for a while. Hey, I've got this guy in my Rolodex. I'll go call him up and we'll get that product that we need shipped over here, blah, 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 done. What you're going to have manufacturing in India, manufacturing in Vietnam, manufacturing in Taiwan, is that infrastructure is not in place. They're going to have to go out and actively seek somebody to supply the materials they need or import it. That can be a problem too. So it's not as easy as just going, let's go to India. There is manufacturing there, and they're doing some nice stuff. Same thing in Mexico. They're doing some nice stuff, but they simply don't have the infrastructure in place to allow a small company like us, like somebody else who's doing one of these small print run projects, to go in and be successful with the tightest possible budget. I mean, that's the one thing that people don't realize is how much of a shoestring this is done on. There's not a lot of profit when you first get started here. As a matter of fact, I'd see there's very little. And you have to largely feed whatever you do make back into the business if you want to continue to do it. So, it's a good notion to think that we can go manufacture somebody else or somewhere else, but it's just not feasible right now. That doesn't mean it won't be 5 years from now. If larger manufacturing like Hasbro and these other big companies help set the infrastructure up that we're going to need, but I can't afford out of pocket to do it. It would price the project way out of range of anybody who's going to buy it. I mean, I already have people that complain about the price anyway, and the print run on my figures is 2,000. That's 2,000 pieces that I've got to sell to make money back on, less what I have to give to my Kickstarter and back kit people. I have to make enough money to put money in my pocket. I have to make a profit. Obviously, I have to be able to pay for the next batch of development, sculpts and stuff like that. And then, there are so many other small costs. I mean, you have to make a much larger amount of money than people realize on these kind of things. You can't just say, well, I made $10. I guess that's good. No, it's not enough. Not if you want to survive and grow the business and offer more product. Yeah, it's. I wish it wasn't that way, but that is how business operates, and it's not just us; it's everybody. They all operate that way. You go down to the corner and you buy a $3 cheeseburger. I guarantee you, it didn't cost them $3, but they have to make enough money. They can afford to buy more stuff. They can pay for their overhead. They can pay their employees, all that kind of stuff. So, the one advantage we have in that scenario is that because it's a small group. This is two of us doing this, and we hire everything else out. So there's not a lot of people we have to pay, but what we're paying out is usually at a premium price because we're hiring freelancers who have a lot of experience, and that's how they make their money. They have to charge for it. So the more things you can do in house, like say Boss Fight, they have got a pretty good lock on what they're doing. They got it down, and I'm happy for them. Knowing all those guys personal and stuff, they've got that stuff locked down, and with all of the options that they have, they can keep most of their stuff in house. So that makes it much more profitable, and it kind of has to be. They've put together a nice group of people. I think they're up to like almost 10 people now operating together as part of their business. Not to talk about their business too much. It's not really my place, but I'm envious, and I hope that we'll be there at some point. They're able to license stuff. We're hoping to get to that. And it takes time and money and resources. And if you can keep those resources in house, it's better because it's less cost for you overall. But back to your original question there, one of the things that I've seen bandied about, and there was even a bit of it there, is bringing it back to the U.S. Well, there's just no way. The infrastructure does not exist here. Just down the road from me in Fort Worth, which is 40 minutes away, a place called Micromold that specializes in small tooling. If we produce this stuff there, our costs would go up about, oh gosh, it had to be at least at least 250, 300%. I mean, it's a ridiculous amount. So it's just not feasible to pick up and move and go, unfortunately. So,
can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you fine. I saw that you had to log in and out. So
yeah, I had to switch to my phone. I'm telling you, the Wi-Fi here.
it's all right. You've been here to my house. You guys know that we live in a 90 some odd year old home that gets a terrible signal. So the Wi-Fi doesn't work very good in the house. I'm actually in the dining room right now, sitting close to 3 picture windows so that we'll get a good signal outside. Let's talk about some stuff regarding those figures.
Right.
I mentioned earlier that the figures that were made a little announcement on this last week, the tooling was already cut for. And as I said, we bundled all of these parts together in the first package that we had sculpted and had all the tooling cut for that on purpose so that it would allow us to do this, hopefully, if we moved past. I mean, obviously, we wanted to do all 16, but the Kickstarter just didn't quite provide enough money to manufacture these other extra guys. I mean, the production run, you spend a lot of money in development, you spend a lot of money in tooling, but the production run is where it'll take a bite out of your butt. I mean, it's just, it's a ridiculous amount of money when you start talking about 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 of one thing, even if it only cost a couple of bucks, which is not what these cost. So we had this tooling cut. Yes, I can. Thank you for asking. The first figure we're looking at here out of the 5, we're calling it the Lost 5, and that was Paul that came up with that name. I think it's appropriate. Is the head honcho. The head honcho uses a color palette that hasn't really been done on any of the colors yet, or any of the other figures yet. And I'll openly say, as I did on our page, this is very much inspired by the vintage Bush and Sundance figures, him and the next guy. The head honcho obviously is inspired by the Butch Cassidy toy that was done by Gabriel way back in the day, probably before most of the guys that are collecting these days started collecting. So there's the gunfighter. He's the other half of that duo that is inspired by the old Butch Cassidy figure. A quick note about that particular design. The vest that's shown on that will actually be open as opposed to closed. When these renders were done 2.5 years ago, almost 3 years ago now, we had not finished up the entire tooling library, but that vest was cut. That'll be open. It was used on the cowpuncher for our regular line, and it'll be used here again on this particular figure. As you can see, and we weren't shy about telling people this, we had to reuse our portraits quite a bit, and this is the 3rd use for this particular head. But what we've done here is do it in a unique hair color that's not available anywhere else on any of the other figures. And then we added a 5 o'clock shadow beard to his facial hair. So I think it's a pretty good looking figure. And certainly a lot of people have expressed a good deal of excitement about it just because he's a straight gun guy. It's great straight gunfighter. So I can go ahead to next one there, Mike. Let's see what we got. Oh, the sheriff. There was some discussion actually on the thread that we're talking about there about what the inspiration for this guy was. And it's taken from a couple of different sources, Bat Masterson, and then the character of Sheriff Behan from Tombstone. It borrows a little bit from each look. Obviously, the Bat Masterson walking stick is after he took a wound in his leg, he had to use that. And what we wanted here was kind of a more dignified version of that particular office holder than perhaps what you've seen in the old Western TV series and in movies and stuff. Contrary to popular opinion, not everybody was a rough and tumble cowboy and, sleeping in a bedroll and things like that. And most people gravitated toward towns and stuff like that when they could. And obviously this guy has been there and lived there. So he's kind of a bit of a dandy. He's the first character to use that particular badge and to have the walking stick, but there will be others. That's kind of almost like a federal shield that you might see from an early FBI agent or something like that. So kind of a unique look, and certainly his color palette is much more coordinated than some of the other guys, which are a little slapdash in terms of the colors that they've picked. So there's that guy, the sheriff. Go ahead and hit the next guy. Yep.
I like this one.
I'm not seeing it just yet.
Yeah, for some reason it's slow on your end.
That's all right. It's because I'm slow. Oh, the prospector. Yeah. I've had a lot of people say that they thought he was inspired by this or inspired by that. We get accused of riffing off of the prospector from Toy Story, but the truth of the matter is this is based on the old Gabriel 8-inch Lone Ranger figure. Those figures were really cool in that they had alternate cloth costumes you could swap around and put on them, and they were marks, or not marks, they were what's it called, world's greatest superhero style figures. And one of the play sets that you could get for your Lone Ranger was called the Mysterious Prospector, and it's a disguise that he put on to go into town and spy and try to solve mysteries on his own. So that's what that one's inspired by. However, you can see that it's got a little bit of Gabby Hayes in it and this and that. The hat is styled directly after the one that was used for Ike Clanton's character in Tombstone. I really like that look, and everybody seems to be a big fan of that kind of beat down, windblown cover. So there you go. The gold pan that you see there in the image, I don't know if you can tell or not, but it's got some gold nuggets in it that'll be paint highlighted that'll really show up well. And he's just every town needs an old codger, and there's yours. So
yeah, there's little gold nuggets in there.
Yep. I had a buddy of mine from Houston suggest the other day, we're trying to figure out multiple uses for the same item, and he's like, you know what? In the right paint colors, that could make a dinner plate with a little bit of scrap of food left on it. Maybe a pile of mashed potatoes with some gravy or something. So I thought, you know what? That's a pretty good idea. I'm stealing that. So you'll see that later, I'm sure. And then the Vaquero. This is actually one of my favorites from the line because he has a very unique look. I wanted a West Texas, out in the middle of nowhere, kind of windblown working cowboy. And that's what we've got here. Broad brim, low crown on the hat, brightly colored shirt, obviously, because he's gussied up to go into town. Chaps, double guns, which is always a bonus. The double pistol firearms. And the thing about this particular figure is he is our first intended Latino guy. I really like that because I want to build some diversity in the line. The Wild West was not all gringos, as you may or may not be aware. Roughly a third of the Cowboys were Latino or Hispanic, and about a third of them were freed slaves or African American. So there was a lot of diversity on the trail, working ranches, things like that. This particular figure is my good buddy Rogelio Casas. You may know him as Columinati, who makes 1/18 scale actual cloth clothing for action figures. That's his ugly mug on there, and he's been very quick to tell everybody it's him. So I'm proud that he's proud of it, and I think it's an excellent version of his likeness. So that rounds out the 5 that we've got. I'll go ahead and talk a little bit more about what we're going to do with these. What's going to happen with these is in October, we're working on the website right now. We're going to have a cart system set up there where you'll pre-order the 5 that you want, or you'll pre-order what you want. These will be delivered sometime in next June. We're hoping July at the latest, because the tooling's already cut. There's no development time there. It's just nailing down the colors and then doing the actual manufacturing. So shouldn't be any delays there. I've spoken at length with our guy on the ground in China, and he is absolutely certain that we can hit that deadline, barring the end of the world scenario or something of that nature. I don't know. Along with those 5, I'm probably going to go ahead and have a couple of new gear and accessory sets with some of the most requested items run. That is to be determined as to what it will be. But while we're manufacturing those, we might as well go ahead and do a little bit of other stuff with it as well. There are 2 things that will be done parallel to this around the same time that I'm not going to get into the details of just yet, but we're going to have 2 exclusive figures for 2020. These will be used as exclusives for particular shows. So as we make our way through the show circuit next year, you'll be able to come and buy those from us or pre-order them, for a particular show. I will reveal the first one at the end of this week on the Facebook page once we have all of the presentation art mocked up. I've got the digital colored turns today, and they look pretty damn good. So I think that should be pretty exciting. One of them, which I won't talk much more about here, is the kind of crossover that is going to bring, well, all the boys to the damn yard. So get your milkshakes ready and your wallets. But as I said, that we'll reveal that toward the end of this coming week on the Chicken Fried Toys Facebook page. I think everybody's going to be pretty pleased with it. The second figure is going to have a lot of new tooling, and will be really, I think I'm very proud of how it's come along. It's going to be something to see. And we've got a longtime friend of ours, Gray Childs, involved with it. Gray is helping with some of the aspects of the getting this thing here. So it's going to be super cool. The pre-order is going to run for these 5 figures and the few accessories we decided to do. It's going to run for about 60 days. So sometime in December, if we've met the pre-order numbers we need to get, we'll place the order for this, and they'll start manufacturing, and then they'll be here, like I said, June or July at the very, very latest, but June is what we're shooting for. So get these figures here, and we'll start filling orders with them and go from there.
As far as pre-order, is that going to be, you have a number in mind you have to hit?
Yes, yeah. We've already crunched the numbers and know what we've got to get. We need to sell 500 of each, pretty much. I mean, it could be 600 of one and 400 of another, but it needs to average 500 for us to be able to have a large enough number to place this order. Obviously, when you're dealing with minimum order quantities in factories and stuff like that, there are some requirements for them to take on your project and stuff. But we've already done almost all the legwork on this. It's just a matter of finalizing a few of the colors and getting those samples to China. All of that will be taken care of well before the pre-order period ends.
And so you need a total of 2,500 total.
Mm-hmm.
And then
that's before we can pull the trigger and say this is the manufacturing date we need. Go forward.
And will they still be carded like the other ones?
Oh yeah, they'll be just like these. Obviously, the information on them will be updated: the picture, the title, the blurb on the back, the assortment of figures that are on the cross sell on the back, that kind of thing. Because it's a pre-order and we need this cash for manufacturing, you are going to be required to prepay. But on the upside of that, we're going to offer a package where you can get all 5 figures for a discount. We're going to keep the price point on these, barring some unforeseen catastrophic circumstance, at $28, which has worked fairly well for us. So it's a little higher than what we were shooting for, but given the print run numbers, it is what it has to be. So if you pre-order all 5, we're going to try to let you have those for $125. Obviously, there'll be some shipping involved, but we're going to try to keep that to the bare minimum. We already use a shipping service, postage buyer, that offers an 8% discount. So you're getting an 8% discount on the shipping, even if the rates seem high to you, and that's about the best that's out there. So
you will get everything will come to your house. There won't be no middleman like there was this time.
No. The idea is to have everything in place so that we can have these, because there's just these 2 figures that'll be exclusives. We'll have these shipped here, and we've got a place to put them right now that's secure and will hold the inventory for even if we had all 7 shipped at one time. So there's stuff in place already for us to be able to do this. And if we have to, it's not going to hurt anything to rent a storage to put a little bit of this stuff in and then bring it as we need it. By that point, we should have a third person on salary to help with the fulfillment aspect, packing and shipping. As you may or may not be aware, it was a difficult process this summer, and it took probably 3 weeks total to get everything out and gone. I was able to travel up to Small Joe's and help Corey in the warehouse for a week, and we packed up about 70% of the orders in that time, which I felt like was a really good number given the fact that it only took us about a week to do that. Part of that was because Corey had already done a lot of the work. He had sorted the cases onto their different pallets and had everything ready so we could move it around. So he definitely gets credit there for working the logistics side, but that's what he was brought in for. So, it's a good job. Very happy to have worked with him on that stuff. And I'm sure we'll be doing more stuff going forward. But for now, for us, we're going to try to get to a point where we're a little more subsistent on our own financially, and this is the best way to do it. So that's the reason for the changes. I think everybody can agree that getting these 5 figures out there as quickly as we are going to be able to will be a nice turnaround, and we should be able to hit 6 to 7 months in this particular format. We should be able to hit 6 to 7 months after that. A new product. So everybody wins in that scenario.
So there are plans to do more, like you had talked before, where more characters and
well, the 5 that we're getting ready to offer the pre-order on were originally slated to be part of a second Kickstarter that was going to unlock the horse and all that kind of stuff for us. But given what Kickstarter and BackerKit take out in terms of fees and stuff, which are fairly significant, given what they take out, we really sat down and did some brainstorming and decided this would be a better way to go because the tooling is already cut for these. If we had tooling and development costs before this had to go forward, absolutely we'd have to go to Kickstarter. But so what we're doing is we're taking the items that would have been bundled in with the horse Kickstarter, and we're offering those over the next 10, 12 months for the public consumption. And then the horse will come somewhere toward the end of that time period. Because the horse is such an expensive item to be finished up, and it's going to have to be a Kickstarter item. And basically what I'll do is I'll build a new Kickstarter with the horse and the mules and all of the parts that contain, and then we'll have 5 or 6 new figures, 5 or 6 gear and accessory sets built out of stuff that we will have tooled over the last year that will be new options for you to buy. And of course the Stagecoach and a couple of other, multi-packs and whatever we can manage to get in there and get done with the money that we have. So basically we're delaying the horse by about a year for what we wanted, using these 2 or 3 pre-orders to build up a war chest so that getting to the horse, because it's such a large expenditure, will be easier.
So you're going to push back Kickstarter at least a year?
Yeah, thereabouts. Yeah. I mean, obviously, if we can get everything all the ducks in a row and go a little faster, that'd be great. But put undue financial burden on the fans of the line and expect them to just dole out $600, $700, $800 over the course of a year to get this done. I'd like to spread it out a little bit more so that it's not such a big financial hit.
So you want to continue doing Kickstarter?
Well, I don't want to, but it is the best way to pay for these big projects that are going to be nuts to butts, start to finish type of thing. Like I said, with these particular 5 figures and the next gear and accessory sets, there's stuff that we already done all the work on except for the production. So it's not such a stretch to get that done on our own and offer that as a pre-order in this case. But like I said, with the horse and what the tooling for the horse alone is $35,000 or $40,000. That doesn't count what it's cost us in development or anything like that, and that absolutely is not counting anything on the print runs. Our plan is to offer 4 horses and 3 mules, and then there'll be repaints and recolors as stretch goals for the horses for sure. 5 or 6 figures built from the library we'll be building over the next year. 5 more blanks, 5 more gear sets, 5 more accessory sets. the 2 packs I've been talking about for 3 years. I'd love to get those done because I think they'd be very dramatic presentation. And then of course the Stagecoach. The Stagecoach, because it's such a cost-intensive item, we're going to be working with just, the prototypes and stuff we have in terms of the photographs. I'm not going to have a lot of development money put into that until we get to a position where we're for sure going to be able to get to it. Simply because it would be a money suck, if you want to call it that. We'll have design work done to figure out how to break it down, how to package it, that kind of stuff. But it won't go beyond that to sculpts until the Kickstarter makes and we know we've got all the cash to pay for it, because it's such a large project that if we allowed ourselves to get in a bad position with it, it could turn us over, and that would be bad.
Right.
So
I do want to show you some pictures of my boy Dakota.
Sure.
He finally apparently just got around to opening his.
His figures.
He only got one,
Mm.
which was the Lone Ranger one.
Mm. There's no Lone Ranger in our line. Sorry. There's only a Badlands Vigilante. Sorry.
That's it.
And regarding that kind of stuff, license items, I have some very exciting news that I can't share just yet. Contracts have not been inked.
Why do you bring it up?
To tease you.
That's just wrong. As you can see, he said he wanted some G.I. Joe cowboy.
I got you.
So he made a cowboy snake eyes.
Cowboy snake eyes. Well, he's not the first person to think of that. I like it. I think it's pretty neat. Pretty good photography for just taking snaps on the tabletop. I've considered for a while how to build a snake eyes that would look kind of accurate and still have it be Western. And what I was thinking was the Badlands Vigilante head. And then, paint some scars around the eyes that you can see through the holes. And then using the upcoming boss fight bandana from their rancher kit that you can buy with the Australian tack and saddle, and putting that up to the nose. So you have 2 bandanas covering the face, one on the head, one on the face. And on the lower half of the face, you could even paint some scars and stuff on the face to make it look beat up, burned up, whatever, to maintain the mythology. Obviously, you've got plenty of black parts to choose from, and body parts, and our Western stuff. There's plenty to choose from there, and there'll be more. So you could absolutely build a gunfighter snake eyes that's Wild West if you wanted. I've seen several people do some crossover stuff. There's a really neat Major Blood I saw the other day and things like that. Yeah. So
that's one cool thing I like is
don't cross the streams. Don't cross the streams.
I really like the Facebook page, new page, I guess.
Yeah, the buy, sell, trade, and custom page. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, there you're seeing some really interesting customs.
A lot of stuff I would not have come up with, but it definitely has some validity in terms of design and design thoughtfulness. I've been really impressed with some of the guys on there, especially the ones that are building dioramas, whole towns. I mean, that's crazy, and that's a skill I don't have. I don't know how to weather and paint like that for that kind of particular thing. So I'm really jealous of it, and almost like steal some if I had the chance. But
how does it make you feel knowing that what you've produced and come up with that has gone this far way out there? People making their own using your parts.
Well, if you'd asked me that when the stuff was on the water on the way over here, I'll be frank with you. I was ready to burn it all to the ground. The stress, all of it. It was almost too much. Mm-hmm. The thing that saved that is exactly what you're talking about. Is once the figures got here, and I got to see people in person playing with them, seeing pictures and how much they're enjoying them, that walked me back off that ledge. And I was really happy for that, because you don't want to throw your time and creative energy into something that you end up hating at the end. And a lot of people that happens to, and I don't want to hate this. I love it. I mean, it appeals to me, as a Texan, Cowboys and things like that. It's part of our culture, and it's just kind of in our DNA down here. And having a lot of the reactions that we've gotten has been very satisfying, and certainly has really just been a bonus. I mean, there's no other way to say it. It's just been great. So, um, and the creativity I've seen out of some of the guys doing customs and things like that is pretty on point. I mean, you can't. I think everybody who bought these is a little energized by having a new format to work in. You've got modern military stuff, and you got Marauder doing great things over there, and they've had GI Joe for a long time, even though it's currently kind of on hiatus, if you want to call it that. But now you've got something else that fires them up, and in turn fires me up creatively, so that I can go even farther with what we're doing. I mean, I've got some crazy ideas, and I hope that we're able to get to them all. What I was talking about stuff. And I had an idea the other day, and I did a real crude pencil sketch of it that I'll share with you. We were talking about, I've got to erase the name off of this. Actually, I'll just have to put my hand on it. There's no pencil here. We were talking about possible accessories, and obviously we would like to fill out some of the other characters that are going to be coming, some of the townspeople and stuff, with some really cool accessories that both work in a diorama sense and then for the figures themselves. A good example of that is what we did with the saloon bartender. Gave him a mug that has an insert so that you can display it 2 or 3 different ways, and it provides options for the end user to kind of build around that. The same thing with the barrel having a flip lid, being able to display horizontally and vertically. But when I was thinking about those mugs and how successful they turned out the other day, I had a little flash of brilliance talking to Christy and sketched this out. And let me cover up the information you're not supposed to see. If you look there, and there we go. What I want to try to do for some of our shopkeepers and stuff is do some candy jars that can sit around, and in an effort to make those a bit more universal, design them so that the jar and the lid come off in one piece, and then there's a base with the contents of the jar on the bottom, so we can get 2 or 3 different bases done and use the same jar, so the uniform size for your display, but there's different contents in either all 3. And you probably didn't have time to read the list there because that was a pretty quick flash, but obviously you want to do licorice whips and some lemon drops and even tea leaves and things like that would have been stored in glass jars to keep them fresh at the time. So hopefully we continue to be creative like that with the accessories, which benefits us because they're a bit more universal. You can interchange the parts and get different stuff, and at the same time be appropriate to the characters. So that's a little sneak peek of how the process works. Sit down and sketch stuff out. Then we get with a digital sculptor and kind of work out the mechanics of it and how things have to go, and then go from there. So I'm hoping, like I said, that we can continue to do that, and I hope that you guys continue to appreciate it. And get where we're coming from with this kind of thing. There are lots of reasons for doing small diorama pieces and display pieces for this particular lineup. I think more than some others. With modern military, you've got a lot of vehicles and things like that. With this, a lot of the flavor of the line comes from the things around the figures, not just the figures themselves. So doing things like this, like the barrel, like the mugs, and the beer bottles and the sarsaparilla bottles and all of those other things, the plate with the mashed potatoes on it that I talked about a little bit ago, all those kind of things really kind of help build the world with small parts around your figures. And I don't know that it's going to make any 40-year-old collector have a different play pattern, but it certainly will change up the way you display things at home. Obviously, we want people to display things and look at them and enjoy them as much as we do. So,
right, I totally like to display my stuff.
Well, I couldn't tell that at all by all that crap behind you. You need to clear some of those Transformers out and make room for some more Cowboys, because by the time we're done with this, there's going to be over 100.
And I haven't even opened up the other ones yet, and I haven't because I thought they were on a bubble card where it opened up.
Oh no, that was a deliberate choice on our part.
Yeah, tell me that. I'll
Yeah.
probably when I get the Buckaroos, I'll probably take those out and put them all together.
Mhm.
Just,
I actually I just got through. Let me see if that box is in here. I actually just got through putting my personal set of Buckaroos together about a week and a half. If I can find the case, I'll show you if you want to see them. I mean, obviously you're gonna be looking at me while I'm like this, so it'll look like a bad YouTube review, but still. And this is
just like mine.
yeah, exactly. This is kind of more or less what I had in mind when we were doing the builds and stuff for these Buckaroos and the gear and accessory sets and such. So let me give you an idea. The one that surprised me was everybody taking the brown pants, either one of the two sets of brown pants, and grabbing a spirit head and turning it into Tonto. I did not think of that. So you guys that did that, nice job. You inspired me to make my own. So here we go. Now, this is not to say this is what you have to do, but this is what I did with mine. And here we go. Turn the collar around so at least it'll look right. Oh, that's the other thing too. I eventually will have all of my stuff glued down, belts and collars. And so those operations were left deliberately for the end user, for the end customer, so that you can get them done up how you want before you actually have to commit and do that. One person in particular did not like that you had to glue down the badges, but that was done because we wanted to keep that operation out of the hands of the Chinese factory worker and leave that with the end customer so you get it exactly how you want it. There's no excess glue or anything like that. So that's not going to change. Here's the first guy. And I'm going to call him Lefty. Now, I'm not going to do the accessories with these guys, but you can see. The derby hat, which this is going to be on the sheriff as well, fits really well on this recolor of the Vaquero head. Sorry, Raj, we turned you into a gringo. And the black over blue, obviously you saw it in the gunfighter. It looks good. I don't see any reason to not do it, even though it's a little bit of kind of repeating myself. All right, let's get the next guy here. Now, this guy, I'm going to have to put his knife back in the sheath here. This guy was kind of intended to be maybe kind of a gambler, somewhat loosely inspired by Jeff Goldblum's character in Silverado, Slick, which if you have never seen Silverado, I suggest you go watch it right now because it's awesome. It's Kevin Costner's big breakthrough film. So obviously this is not an exact interpretation of that character, Slick, but here's what we did, or here's what I did.
I like that one a lot.
Yeah, well, if you look and see, when I was doing the color palettes for the Buckaroos and stuff, I deliberately made it so that you would be able to put this coat on this particular torso and have the arms match, the darker gray legs, and then even darker boots, a knife sheath to hang where the coat is open for a holster. It looks really good. And then the hat sits down pretty well on the head. I really like it. I think it looks pretty sharp. But that was kind of what I intended with that guy. And this was just a happy circumstance. I don't know who had this idea, but I thought it worked out pretty well. His gun belt just popped off, so I'm not going to put it back on there right now and take too much time. And then here's the one, like I said, that kind of surprised me that everyone has done. Let me turn his gear around and get it going the right direction. Because the belts were designed to be a bit more universal, 2 or 3 belts to fit every guy. Some of them are loose on the torsos a little bit, and that was a design choice we had to make. As we get farther into the line and our budget gets deeper, we'll be able to make them have exact fits that are a little bit tighter. And if you don't like the way a belt fits, it's not a big deal to just clip a piece out of it and glue the ends together. Hi, Christy, you're on the video. There you go. Yeah, there's those orange boots that nobody liked.
Turned out
Obviously,
really
if you're using it, there's some more detail and stuff I want to do to this. I'd like to put a loincloth over it and that kind of thing. But the Spirit Head from Hasbro is a really good sculpt. And if you decide to use this one, which is off of the 50th anniversary 2-pack, you'll have to Dremel the hole out in the neck so it'll sit low enough on the neck ball, because unfortunately everything's not universal. So you go ahead. You don't have a choice. Go on. Because that's not how it works. You stop walking through here while I'm working. Leave me alone. I don't want to be on the video. I'm going to walk through here anyway because I know you're on the video. This is the last guy I put together, and he's pretty cool, but he's going to require some paint to be completely done. I really haven't thought of a name for him yet, but he is pretty cool, I thought. Now, if you look there, it's African-American character. This is one of the heads from the multi-pack. Hats from the multi-pack, coat, all that kind of stuff from the multi-pack. He's got a reverse grip 6-gun on there with the large cartridge belt, the tan legs with the boots. Now, the coat obviously doesn't match the arms because the arms are bracers and the coat is for, well, the whole thing. But what I'm going to do there on the coloring is paint the bracers to match the coat and actually cut the vest out of the coat. So the coat will just be like a over jacket they threw on over it. I like the purple bandana, even though it doesn't show up very well in these pictures because the color's washed out. It's pretty bold. I think the only one I didn't use so far is the green one. And wow, is that thing green. So pretty pleased with that. And that's what I did with my 5. Obviously, you don't have to do the same. But that was kind of how I intended things to go for myself when we got to these. So what do you think?
They look really good. I like them.
Well, just try not to do anything too terribly obvious. So, oh, what we got here? Who's this guy? Oh no, who are you with no head? Oh, who's that? I don't know. What? One of the things, and I talked about it on the Facebook page, and that's why I drug that out. One of the things I talked about on the Facebook page is the inspiration for the Buckaroos and the gear and accessory sets will come from other Western properties, inspiration, homages, whatever you want to call it. They're not going to be straight copies because obviously we don't want to do that and get in trouble. But on down the line, one of the gear and accessory sets and the Buckaroos for that will be inspired by things like Brave Star, Cops, was it Galaxy Rangers? I know that a lot of the guys from Spain and a few from South America have really requested a lot of that. So we're going to try to use some of those color palettes and provide you with some choices so you can build some versions of those guys. Obviously, they're not going to be exact, but like I said, we want to give you the opportunity to do that with a minimum amount of effort if it's possible. So that's the idea there. So
with that being said, when again are you going to start doing pre-orders?
Well, we're shooting for the first week in October. I'm just starting to go back and forth with the website guy to make sure that it has all the features that we want, and implement a pay service and that kind of thing.
Will you take PayPal?
Probably so. Yeah. I don't see any reason. I don't see any reason why we wouldn't. Yeah.
A certain organization wouldn't take PayPal, so you know.
I understand. No, I don't see any reason why we wouldn't. Again, as I stated a while ago, there's going to be about 6 months between payment and delivery on these. But the tooling is already cut. All of the bugs have been worked out of it. Everything is what it's supposed to be. I've got test shot samples of all 5 of those figures here, built from parts to make sure everything is correct. It's just a matter of getting the color control art to China and taking care of that. And the cool thing about this particular batch is, with the exception of one head, I think, all the tampos, all the paint designs already done. It's just a matter of getting the right colors put on these figures. So you'll see the pinstripe pants again on the sheriff, obviously, that were on the trail, the ranch hand and the territory's lawman. Only now they'll be on a full length set of pants, not with the boots tucked in. So I'm excited about seeing these and how quickly we're going to be able to put them on the line and let you guys get them in your hands. So for me, it's pretty cool, to move this quickly away from getting them here and get them mailed out and then moving on to the next thing. So I don't know. Give me your money. Give Mike your money. I don't know.
Don't give me your money. I'll just buy Cowboys.
There you go. Hey, problem solved, right? You have any other questions you have any other questions or anything else that was on your mind about it, or anything that anybody's asked or mentioned to you?
No, I know. I wanted to hit towards the Kickstarter issue.
Mm-hmm.
I know there's a lot of issues with that.
Well, I mean, yeah, exactly. If you want to talk about what's going on with some of that, we can get into it just a little bit. Again, some of the information is not mine to put out there, but some of it is obvious to anybody that's been through the process. So it's not easy. It's not hard to see what's going on, even without exact facts. Like I said, there's 2 or 3 Kickstarters that are all being manufactured at the same factory, as well as some of the figures that you talked about earlier. And the problem's the same with everyone. Big factories, with lots of infrastructure in place, want to take on big jobs and make big money. And these small print run things are something they do in the off time. So they'll take on a job like this. They'll take the deposits. They'll take the money, and then just push it off. Well, this came in. We need to do this job first, and that's what's happened here. Obviously, anybody who's worth their salt is going to try to push through and get the project completed, because you really can't abandon it where you're at right now without losing a lot of money and perhaps even some of your materials, your tooling and things like that, and push through and then move it somewhere else when it's done. I know that the 2 or 3 people that I'm referring to have all made steps to do that. They're looking to get away from this one particular poison pill, and it's not, this information wasn't out there in the small boutique figure market for everyone to know ahead of time. This is not something that was just a matter of research not done, or due diligence not done. This kind of just popped up out of nowhere, and it's certainly bit a lot of people in the butt. That being said, remember, guys, and I don't say this to admonish anyone, remember that Kickstarter is a way to see the project completed. And what you get for that, for seeing the project completed, is a chance to be an early adopter. You get the chance for some rewards. You're not buying something. It's not a pre-order store. They don't technically owe you anything, because it says very clearly in the Kickstarter, you're donating money to help get this project off the ground. And it's very easy to overlook that and think, well, this is just a pre-order from a store. Well, that's not really how it works. When you're pre-ordering from a store, there are certain guarantees. There are certain things that you can do to provide to make sure that you're taken care of and you receive the product that you're supposed to receive in a relatively timely manner. And with these projects, there are delays, there are, all that kind of thing. But, and two, remember, this is a thing too. Nobody who does one of these projects sets out to fail. Nobody. And nobody wants to. I have had this discussion several times with a lot of the guys that do this kind of thing. The first project that fails to deliver, just completely fails to deliver, and somebody walks away in the stuff that we're interested in the action figure marketplace, is going to devastate it for everybody else, because this community is small and it has a long memory. So nobody wants to be that guy. And I promise you, these other companies that are experiencing hardship right now, they're doing everything in their power to get this done, because they don't want to be that guy. And it might be a little bit of a long haul getting there. Obviously, we've got a couple of projects that are nearing the 4-year mark. Actually, one. And, some other ones will be hitting the 2 to 3 year mark. but they're going to deliver. I mean, if they can do anything that's going to make this happen, they're going to do it. So show your support, try to be positive while you wait, and just understand that this is all part of the deal. Unfortunately, if everybody had enough money to go and manufacture, everyone would be doing it, because it's not hard to come up with a few concepts that somebody might buy. But the problem is the money and the time and the expertise make this giant ball of wax that's really hard to overcome. So be patient, and be mindful that no matter how upset you are about waiting on your stuff, waiting on your rewards, there's somebody on the other end of it who is a lot more wrought up about it than you are, because not only do they have money out, their reputation is out. And that's something that's very difficult to come back. So I hope that our friends and acquaintances that are doing this, that are having trouble, get to the end of their projects pretty quick here. And I think that they're all moving that way. I know that at least one, if not more, is moving to our factory, which has a great deal of expertise making this kind of product. And even though we had some hardships and some stumbling blocks and challenges, still got through them. And delivering that felt really good. I mean, if you add up all of the money that we had involved in this, both for the production, for our money that we put into it, and all that, I mean, it was $250,000. That is a tremendous amount of money. And these other projects, while they may not be quite as big as ours, are still in that same ballpark. And like I said, none of these guys want to fail. None of the guys set out to fail. None of the guys are doing anything to make themselves fail. So, like I said, be patient, try to be understanding, and try to be supportive. And remember, there's somebody else on the other side of whatever conversation you're having about it.
Well, folks, that's going to be it for the night. Look for John's page later in the week for the announcement he's talking about.
Yeah, it's not quite ready to show off yet, but we'll have that information up. We'll have at least the first teasers of information up by the end of the week. So,
all right, great. And I'm sure everyone who backed you on the Kickstarter will be very pleased to back this X project.
Oh, I guarantee you right now, like Sean Rothy and those guys are already foaming at the mouth.
Yeah. Great. That's good to hear.
Yeah. It's gonna be fun. So,
all right, guys. Well, we'll be back in 2 weeks, hopefully. Maybe Fred will join us.
Who's this Fred person you speak of? I never see him on here.
I know, right? You brought it up. I didn't.
Yeah. All right, guys. Y'all have a good night. Thanks for having me on, Mike.